it's not about that. It's not about you having a great idea or them having a great idea. It's actually finding out what really works. And I've already said it, like finding out. It's not like knowing, but you have to actually go out and test stuff. And to be able to test, it's best if you don't put all your resources in it. Like I've also heard of people who are paying like crazy to get concert venues and losing money and like dying from work. You don't want to do that. No. You want to create like small, smart, like kind of testing ground where you can try out an idea, see if it works, see how people resonate with it. And if it's going well, then you can double down and go on to create more of it. Hello and welcome to the Artful Maestro podcast. I'm your host, Nenad Leonart, and today we are going to look into the second part of what we started out in the last episode, and that's to actually untangle yourself from this system, to untangle yourself from the games that everybody else is playing, and that is determined to create winners and losers. Strictly speaking, today we're going to learn about how to stop playing their game and how to create new circumstances, a new life where you can actually feel like a winner. That sounds very American. Feel like a winner. It's more than just a cheesy motivational thing that I want to talk to you about. It is actually about going out and becoming that person that you really want to become, and so that you can live your life without feeling like you have to compromise, without feeling like you don't get what you deserve, without, settling. Settling is a word that I think kind of describes it great. Just, to settle for something. You actually want to feel happy in your life. And even more so, I would say fulfilled, because happiness is kind of fleeting. Sometimes you're happy, sometimes you're not, but actually have this fulfilling sense that what you do is meaningful and what you go at is kind of the thing that you're supposed to be doing, that deep down inside, I'm supposed to be doing that. And opposing to what we see in the world is where there's like this game going on. And by looking at it, you can tell, so this is tough. There is not much room for mistakes. There's not much possibility to be like really creative with it. The system is always the same and the idea is always the same. And where we kind of are is this system of creating winners and losers. So that's why it's not just a motivational thing. You actually live in a world, we all live in a world where the whole thinking is created to form this sense of, okay, there's people who are going to win at life and there's people who are going to lose at life. Who are you going to be? Right? And this is a very dualistic kind of thinking. It creates these weird expectations towards people that if they don't win, they are going to lose. So there's a lot of competition. There's a lot of dishonesty because sometimes the want to win is so strong that even unethical methods become viable just to get the thing that I want, right? So people start doing trickery, they start cheating, they start lying on their resumes, they do all different kind of weird things just because it seems like, okay, we are all in this game and this game is like really, really hard, and it's tough. It is really tough because ultimately it comes down to your survival. So are you going to be able to do what you want to do? Are you going to be able to be the person that you want to be, and like have a job, especially in the arts field, and in different cultural jobs that you have? Like, can we really do that without it, being very, very damaging to our existence? And many people, especially during the pandemic, they chose to leave the arts. They chose to, I remember like this one particular instance where this lady that played in an orchestra, she just, when the pandemic came, she just like quit the orchestra and went and worked as a cashier. Just like as a statement, hey, I need to earn some money. The world doesn't think that I'm essential, so here I am. And it's been a really tough one to let that sink in, for all of us who have been working in the fields of the arts, to not be considered essential. Okay. So if we are not being considered to be essential, what's the next thing that we can do about that? That's something that has been really kind of leading me through these last couple of years. What can I do if people think that I am not essential? And I kind of had this thought of, well, what if I became essential? What if I did something and helped others to realize that this something is actually so meaningful that there is no substitution for it, and that they can acknowledge that it has internal value. And this is the word that's going to be really important: value. Because in everything that's being done in this world, every kind of exchange, every payment, every kind of thing that's going on, behind that is the perception of value. Like, if I'm going to go out and buy something, I want this one thing to be of value to me. It can be of value because I'm hungry and just want to eat something, so food is going to be of value to me at that point. And maybe I'm going to value, depending on my state, value more the yummy, good tasting food, or maybe I'm going to value more the kind of healthy, long-term, fulfilling kind of food. So you can see how, depending on our emotional state, value can shift, and depending on what's going on. If I just ate a lunch, I have no need for further food, so it kind of devalues the food for me right now at that point. So the value is going to go up once I'm hungry again, but as long as I'm not, it's not as valuable. Okay, very easy to understand, and this is basically how everything works. We live in a world that's like the Western world is based on capitalism, and the idea of capitalism is like, free markets, self-regulating, and so on. If you really look down at it, you can see that it's built on, so supply and demand, which means resources are finite. There's a certain amount of resources in the world, and this has to go around, and certain people will get more, certain people will get less. The ones who get more, they are going to be the winners, and the ones who get less, they are going to be the losers. And that's how this is like just a theory of how the world could work and this is how it's working in the Western world, more or less, right now. And for us, it's completely normal because we grew up in it. I actually grew up in a socialist state. Now that I think of it, that's kind of interesting, but that's for another time. What I want to say is, this is a theory, like this is a construct that Adam Smith has created. I remember seeing his statue back in Edinburgh when I was traveling there last year, and like this dude just wrote down some thoughts, some things that he thought, okay, this is how it's supposed to work. This is how things are going to go, right? And other people caught on and said, yeah, that's a good idea. Let's do this. And basically we've built a whole system onto this. These ideas were, I think, around 400 years old at this point. I'm not sure at his biography, but I think he lived in the 17th century. So it is kind of really outdated if you want to see it from that kind of perspective. And there's very many reasons why we still hold on to it, because the world was kind of forced to work in this fashion, because certain truths have not changed for a long while. For example, the truth that resources are limited, so there's not enough, or that everybody would have the same chance if they put enough work into it, right? Because the idea was also to not have like regulations from outside or something like that, but that you actually would have a free market. Now, all of these things are not a reality, and I'm getting a little bit complicated right here. What I want to say is that looking back at the last few decades, we are actually living in a very different age right now. It's called the information age. Some call it the digital age. Now, even with AI popping up, it's going to be a very, very different world very soon. So the ones that kind of were pretty savvy and saw this happening, they said, well, what if the basic laws that everybody in this world is being taught, what if they don't actually apply? Like, what if it's not the truth? And what if I can create something that kind of goes around it and just doesn't play that game where people are going to win or they're going to lose? I don't know about you, like, I love competition. I do love to play board games. I do love to, sit down with friends or maybe play some cards. Games are really fun for me, so I really love to do it. And it also depends a lot on the spirit with which you play the game with. Because we all know there are sore losers, and I've been a sore loser myself a couple times, but I also really like winning. But especially when working like with friends, when playing with friends, you can create such an amazing experience while playing that it doesn't even matter if you win or lose. You can actually go and have such a fun night of games that nobody cares who is the winner or the loser in the game. That kind of provides also the same circumstances. You're going to have a winner and a loser, but the actual experience is so fun that the rest doesn't matter. And we've talked about value a little bit before, so let's apply that idea to playing the game. Okay, so if we have created something inside of the game has one goal: win the game, right? But if you see the process around the game, like the socializing, the having fun, the maybe doing jokes, the maybe telling stories around it, or like doing role plays, or I don't even know. Depending on you, depending on your friends, depending on who you want to play it with, right? But you can create such a fun experience that like the value of the game becomes not the game itself, but actually the playing of the game with the other people. And so with this kind of thinking, you can reshift the whole dynamic of, let's say there's a game going on, you got winners and losers, but you can create a completely different experience based on where you put the value and how much you emphasize it. Right? You could go to a game night and say, okay, we're gonna try and have some fun. And then you don't have fun, and again, it becomes about winning or losing. So this is not just thinking about it and then it's gonna magically happen, but it's actually about having the intention to go that way, to do that, and also putting in different systems, methods in place where everybody kind of agrees on this a little bit, but also that this can actually happen. Now, if we take this metaphor and apply it to real life, okay, again, I've said the reality of where we lived up until the last century was, okay, we have all these limited resources. The earth is a certain size. There is a certain amount of minerals, of food, of, I don't know, fossil fuel, of all these things. And you'll see people fighting over those. You'll see wars breaking out. You'll see people trying to control these finite resources, and especially there where it has already been kind of a lot of wars and a lot of, let's say, winning and losing in the past, you'll see the people especially holding on to the mindset of winning or losing, and wars just keep coming up again and again and again. So that's very important to know. If you already have a situation where this has been the theme and the story for so long, probability is high that it's still gonna be a theme over there as well. And us being in the information age right now, this means that certain types of resources are nearly limitless. Certain types of resources are nearly limitless because these resources do not have to be mined. It's not like minerals that you need to get out of the ground. It's not like fuel that's in certain parts of the world. It's not like food that only grows corn in this country and wheat in that other country and potatoes over there in that field. But there's certain types of value that you can create that are not dependent on mining, but that are actually limitless because you can just make something happen out of nothing. And that is the huge power that we have as people who are working in the arts. We have the possibility to create. We can make things that have not existed before. We can make these a unique experience. And the more unique and beautiful this experience is, and when we put mechanisms in place, people are going to come in contact with it, and people are going to value these creations. So this is one way where you can completely step out of the game of having to win or lose and actually enter this new age that we have and just arrive there with creating inside of limitless possibilities. Obviously, it's not like limitless. We still have certain limits, like the hours of the day, the amount of our lifespan. Like there are certain limits. But the power that we have today is that we have the possibility to create as much as we want in the fashion that we want. And we even have not just the means to create, but also to share it with the rest of the world with some very easy methods. It's so quick. It's so easy. It's just creating a website or going on social media and posting about this. And it's like in the game that I described, playing with your friends. If you create it in such a way that it's engaging for people, that they go like, oh, this is fun. All of us can actually forget about the game being played in front of us with like winning and losing and everyday stupid stuff going on. But we can actually go into another world, which is much more exciting to be in, and which is in some sense even more real than the one that we have, that we live in every day, based on the scarcity paradigm. You've probably heard people talking about abundance paradigm and scarcity paradigm. I know I have. It's a really, really common theme where people go like, oh, that's scarcity mindset. Like, you have some limiting beliefs and so on. Like, what does that all mean? It usually means people have been growing up in this world that has a limited amount of jobs, a limited amount of places to work, a limited amount of money to go around, a limited amount of, and so on and so on. So the great thing that you can do is understand that the limits are only imposed to those people who actually believe in these limits. Because with your ideas, with your mind, and especially with your creations, whatever you're able to create, the sky is the limit. So you can actually create your own job. You don't have to be dependent on somebody else. Like, you can create your own job. Again, just stopping to do everything and just saying, I'm going to create my own job, and lifting your hands up in the air and then thinking it's going to happen or like it's going to manifest itself, that's not working. I actually know somebody who quit like all his jobs in order to start a new job that he thought in his head, oh, yeah, I'm going to be great at that. So they quit everything and said, from March on, I'm going to be just doing my solo stuff. And they actually failed miserably. And they're in a much worse situation today than they have been like a year ago because they haven't thought through it. So it's not just about, oh, I want to create, so I'm going to create and people are supposed to like it. It's actually much more complicated than that, in the terms that there's not just you, but there's also others in the equation. It's like, you can think of it as a relationship. If you're in a relationship, it's not just about you, it's also about the other person. So you start to talk and you kind of see, okay, what do I want? And what does this other person want, right? So how can I provide something that is of value to them so that they are like happy and satisfied and we can have like a good relationship? If you want to see it from a certain perspective, you can say it's like a transactional thing, right? Like, what am I getting and what am I giving out? Obviously, like, relationships are much more complicated than that and can also be much more beautiful than that. However, it's one way of looking at things. And let's say if you're in a relationship and you are not providing any kind of value to the other person, well, guess what? You're not going to be in a relationship for very long. So going back to creations, it's got to be of value to the opposite side. Like when you are creating something, which you can do limitlessly, and you can create even your own job, the idea is that this creation is supposed to be of value to someone or something. Okay? If it is, they are going to be interested. And it's not like they are maybe going to be interested. They are going to be interested in it if it's of value to them. Now, who gets to decide if it's of value to them? You? That's the one big mistake most people make when they start to do their own thing. They're like, oh, I have this one amazing idea and everybody's going to love it. But they did not go out and ask everybody if they're going to love it, or even like let everybody experience. Sometimes people will say, oh yeah, that's a cool idea, I'm going to love it. And they just don't care about it, or they don't show up. You know how often I've had that happen to me? Like people go, oh, you know what you should do? Or you know what you could do? Like having these great ideas. And then I do it, and they don't even show up. Like I organize concerts after their suggestions, and it's like, oh yeah, you know. So it's not about that. It's not about you having a great idea or them having a great idea. It's actually finding out what really works. And I've already said it, like finding out. It's not like knowing, but you have to actually go out and test stuff. And to be able to test, it's best if you don't put all your resources in it. Like I've also heard of people who were paying like crazy to get concert venues and losing money and like dying from work. You don't want to do that. No. You want to create like small, smart, like kind of testing ground where you can try out an idea, see if it works, see how people resonate with it. And if it's going well, then you can double down and go on to create more of it. Okay? So that is a very good way to go about not playing the game that's being pushed on all of us by society, but creating your own way of getting ahead. Again, like this whole game, maybe to elaborate a little bit more onto it, the reason why this game is happening is because certain people have a huge interest for this game to happen because they earn more and more and more money by it going on. Because you've heard that the richer get more rich and the poor get more poor. Reason being that once that you have a lot of resources, you can redistribute them to create even more resources. And they are, of course, going to be interested in people giving them their resources, and they have the means to do it. So again, what you want to do is try to play that game as least as possible. So if you can avoid it altogether, it's not really possible because obviously you have to pay food, you have to pay rent, you have to pay, I don't know, for your electronics, whatever also you need to do like your creations. But that's their game. And you're never going to win at their game. Maybe you are, okay? Like maybe if you really, really tried hard enough. I know a few people who won that game. And guess what? They're not really happy because winning is empty. Going back to this to this metaphor with playing with friends. I don't know if you've had that experience as a kid or even later, but so often, like the triumph of winning a game, it's very temporary. It's like, oh, I'm the best. I did it. I showed everyone. And then you kind of notice, like if you start reading the room, everybody's either pissed or sad or, like they're not feeling it. So in a sense, you could also say that you lose much more than if you didn't win in this fashion. Because there's like the lose-lose situations, there's the win-lose situations, and there's the win-win situations. And what you want to be in is like as much as possible in the win-win situations. This one has been really hard for me. I guess it's kind of hard for everyone, but like for me, I had a very, very strong sense of justice, like this person is not supposed to do that. And then so often I would go even like into the lose-lose thinking, where I would go like, I'm not going to allow them to do that, even if it costs me more time and more money and more energy to invest in it. I'm just not going to allow this thing to happen because they don't deserve it. I remember me thinking this a lot when I was growing up because I felt like, I need to do justice in the world. And today, when I notice like a thought like that creeping up, I kind of laugh at it a little bit because I know that's like my younger self trying to do justice, and it's kind of cute. And I know it's not going to lead anywhere. And probably if you examine the situations in your life, or if you have some friends or family members who are behaving like that, you will know that's not really sustainable long term. So you're not going to get anywhere with this except for more and more destruction. Okay. So you want to be in the win-win paradigm as much as possible. And again, if you have to play this other game, when paying rent, when buying stuff, and so on, try to also be here as much as you can in the win-win paradigm. Basically, if you live in a normal society, more or less, you can still stay in the win-win, which means like I give money to someone, so they get a win, and I get a service in return. I get a win, and you're not forced to do anything. Basically, it's all on good terms, and that's what I think is how it's supposed to be. And if you try to live in this paradigm as much as you can, you're going to be much more happy. If you have thoughts of, okay, I'm going to do like a win-lose. So if I win, or for me to win, this other person has to lose, like trying to undercut them or trying to, I don't know, like not pay for all the services, or I don't know, trying to, there's a lot of ways where you can do like win-lose situations. I strongly suggest that you re-examine those and see if that's really necessary, because if you live in this, it's going to have a huge cost on yourself as well, because people, guess what, are going to behave towards you the same way, because they kind of smell it, they notice it, oh, this is a win-lose person, so I have to win, which means they have to lose. And your life is going to be much harder than it actually has to be. So try to stick at the win-win. Again, the win-win always takes into account the other person. And you see there's a theme going on here. Also, when you create, you want to take the other person into account. And it's got to be their win. It's got to be something that's of value to them, not to you. I hear this so much of people who talk to me in the coaching, for social media, for music, entrepreneurship, for videos. Like, it's always the same thing. Hey, I have this great idea, or why doesn't this video work? Or why can't I reach the people? This is such a cool thing. And I'm like, is it really? is it really like, have you asked them what they actually think of it? Have you talked to someone on a like honest basis so they can tell you, you know what, I think this part was good, this other part wasn't really meaningful to me? It's something that you definitely should do. And I've actually spent a good amount of this year just on research, like finding out what others want and need. Because once that you know what they want and need, and believe me, there's a lot of stuff that they want and need, then you can provide it to them. And then you can create win-win situations where they are actually valuing what you give to them. And this is leading me to the last part of today's episode, which is going to be the Ikigai. And the Ikigai being the Japanese word for, I think the translation is a reason for being. Apparently there's even a book about this, and I just heard the concept in a seminar a couple of weeks ago, and I've been thinking about it over and over and over again. And translated or interpreted out of that, it's the idea that purpose, like purpose of life, isn't a one-sided thing. Purpose of life is not a one-sided thing. So the older generations, like 20 years ago even, let's say our parents, they have not really had a chance to be confronted in their life with the meaning of purpose, with what purpose in this life really means. And it kind of got popularized in the 2000s, and a lot of people started going, oh, I want to live my purpose. I want to have meaning in my life. I want to do a job that's actually meaningful to me or meaningful to the world or meaningful, like, in whatever sense. And purpose became like this popular thing where everybody's like, okay, live your purpose. Find your purpose, go out and find out what you love, go out and do this thing. And I know people who were like been looking for their purpose for so long, and they would just like start one thing and then abandon it and then go to the next and so on. So that's like one side of things where it's kind of tacky. The other side is people who just decide, like, okay, this is going to be my purpose, and then they're kind of suffering because it's really hard to implement their purpose in the world. This is especially with artists, with musicians, like they know that deep down, this is my calling, this is what I want to do. And then usually you have like two kinds of them. Like one is just going after the calling and feels like my art is not reaching anyone. It's not arriving anywhere. And the other ones that kind of give up and say, oh yeah, well, whatever, I'll just settle. And then they go and teach in a music school and they kind of get their money, but they've kind of settled. So what you want to do with purpose, with meaning of life, meaning of your life, is you want to actually understand that it's not a one-sided thing. There is your purpose from your perspective, but there is also the side of your purpose, how it actually manifests in the world. Like what is arriving out of it at other people, what they are getting out of it. And here comes the model of Ikigai, which I think is a really, really beautiful model. So you can imagine it like, you can even Google it. It's like Ikigai, but it's not a guy who's icky, but it's just like Ikigai. You can write it like the word in Google and find, you'll see these diagrams, which what you will see is like 4 circles and they're overlapping. So they're overlapping each other, and like all 4 of them are overlapping in the middle. So you have like a north, east, west, and south circle, right? And each circle is going to stand for something else. And so you have 2 internal circles that are focusing on the internal part of purpose, and then you have 2 external circles that are focusing on the external part. So the internal ones, the first one is what I love to do, and the second one is what I am good at. Okay? So we have the first and the second, what I love to do and what I'm good at. These are the internal ones. And the external ones, we have what the world needs, and the other one being what I am being paid for. Okay? So what the world needs and what I'm being paid for. And what you notice here, like all of these circles, there's like 4 of them, they are not necessarily including each other, even like the internal ones between each other and the external ones. So like what the world needs is not necessarily what I can get paid for. And at the same time, what I love to do, is not necessarily the thing that I'm good at, right? So having these circles overlap, there's going to be an overlap in the middle where all of these circles overlap. And that's going to be like the one thing that you love to do, that you are really good at, that the world needs, and that you will get paid doing it. If you manage to get all these 4, okay, and then what's going to happen is that work is not going to feel like work. And also, like you earning money is not going to feel like you are taking away something from someone to get, but it is actually something that you receive from somebody who is willing to contribute that to you because you have contributed to them. And that's a completely other game. You cannot even compare these 2 worlds because it's a very different paradigm. It's a very different place it's coming from, like from inside. And this is the dream that I have for all the people that I work with. I want to be able to help them reach this part of their being where they can be happy, where they can be fulfilled, where they get to do what they love and what they're good at, and it's actually something that the world needs, and it's actually something that they can get paid for. So when you are designing your next project, when you are creating your next thing, think about these 4 areas. Think about what your role is in the whole project, and think about how that thing is going to be meaningful to others, and not just think it, but actually go out there and ask them, what do you think about this? Would this be valuable to you? And if you do that, you are going to have a very, very clear path of how to actually arrive at the destination that you are aiming to go. Don't play the game that everybody else is playing. Don't play the game of competition. I'm going to one-up you. I'm going to use my elbows to get in the front. Because once you do that, you're starting to work towards other people's criteria, and you completely lose focus of yourself in that equation. Also, don't be just like blindly creating art and living in the art world like we get taught, because art so often is just a reflection of self, and it kind of exists isolated, has nothing to do with the people outside, because I'm creating my art, right? So I'm going to be very personal and special about it. That is fine. However, think about how what you're creating can translate to reach other people. How can you communicate what you're creating, not just through art, but also through words, through values that other people have, through meaning that is shared across communities, across, let's say, listeners, across your fans. And this will enable you to have a very, very different style of relationship. I mean, even if you think about compensation, think about this. So many people struggle today to make art, to make music, and get paid for it. Let's say you have reached some fans. You have actually found people who think what you do is so special and so unique that they are willing to give you a part of their income because you provide so much to their life. And then you can sell things like, I don't know, special access, like merchandise, like releases, like artwork, like whatever that you can sell to them. And let's say you get like $50 from them every 3 months. Like you're just creating massive value. You're putting so much stuff out there, and they every 3 months they buy something for like $50. Okay? It's gonna be $200 per year that you get from this person. And with social media, with the internet, with all the modern means that we have, you can reach people all over the world. And if you, let's say, reach 5,000 of these people that just give you $50 each every 3 months, if you're able to create this kind of relationship, do your calculation. You are going to earn $1 million in a year just by reaching 5,000 people who are willing to give you $50 in 3 months, every 3 months. Because what you do is so valuable to them and is providing such an experience that they cannot find it anywhere else. And I'm sure that you have paid a lot more in the past to people providing you these kinds of experiences. And if you know how to talk to people who are then going to be your potential customers or your fans or whatever it's going to be, if you find the right way to talk to them, and if you create a thing, it's going to be limitless. It's going to be limitless, and you are actually going to earn pretty decently. This is what we look at in the Artful Maestro program. This is what I work with people every day, trying to help them find this inner motivation and trying to find also this connection with other people, understanding who they are, where they're coming from, what they need, what they want, and what you personally, specifically, can provide for them, what you can do for them, so that they feel like they want to give something in return. A basic human principle, and it's actually a very beautiful thing. And this is how you can live, make a living, how you can earn money exclusively from your art. That's been it for today. I hope that you got some pretty cool insights out of this. Do let me know how you feel about this. Do shoot me an email or send me a message. I read through all my emails and my messages. I don't always have the time to reply or the possibility, but just so you know that I always go through them and that I value any kind of feedback, insights, ahas that people have, because this ultimately helps me to create more content that resonates with you. Thank you, and see you in the next episode.